Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Walls webinar. My name is Nick, and I will be doing the presentation with you today. Just like all of our previous webinars, everybody will be on mute, but if you do happen to have any questions at any point during our class, please feel free to go ahead and type that into the questions and answers section of the Zoom panel, and I will go through and answer any questions that may have come up at the end of our class. Also, I will be sending out an email that's going to contain a document that covers everything that we're going to be looking at. You will be getting that at the end of our class today. Again, everybody will be on mute, and my name is Nick. So let's get started with the Walls webinar. So in today's class, we're going to be looking at some detailed information about drawing and editing walls in Envisioneer. We're going to be taking a look at how to draw our walls. We're also going to be looking at how to edit the walls once they've been inserted. And then we're also going to be looking at how to add custom walls to the catalog. So first, let's talk about drawing our walls. So there are different ways to create walls in Envisioneer, depending on your design style. You can draw them to exact dimensions, or you can simply pick points while watching the on-screen dimensions. You can also copy existing walls to create new ones. Whether your design style is highly precise or more free-form, Envisioneer is very versatile and will work with you to achieve your goals. So let's start a new drawing here. So I'm going to go in, I'm just going to select a new template, and I'm going to click Create. Once we have our new drawing open, the first thing that we should always be checking is our building location. So again, in the lower left-hand corner, you can select the building locations, or under Settings, Building Locations. In here, again, we're going to be able to control our building locations and how we want our walls to be drawn, be that framed wise, as well as what our heights are supposed to be. So you're going to make sure that you have these all set up. We've already done a webinar on setting up our building locations. So we're going to keep ours set to the defaults here, and we're just going to say OK. So now we're going to be drawing walls to exact dimensions. So when you know the exact dimensions that you want your perimeter walls to have, you can use the Walls by Baseline tool. This option allows you to type in precise lengths for each wall. As you draw your wall segments, a self-closing line diagram is going to be formed. When you have finished specifying your wall lengths, you are then prompted to specify an offset method for the walls relative to the baseline that you have drawn. You can offset them from the outer face of the veneer, from the outer face of the wall core or stud, or from the inner face of the wall. So let's take a look at this in practice. So let's go up and select, again, if you like to use the menu option, you can go up to Insert, and then you can select Walls and Walls by Baseline. If you like to use the buttons underneath the Building tab, you will have the Walls button, and there's a little drop down beside the Walls button. Simply click on that arrow, and then you can select Walls by Baseline. The catalog will populate automatically on the right-hand side, showing you all the different wall types available to you. And we're just going to grab the 2x6 brick veneer wall. So I'm just going to minimize the folder here and open up masonry. And I'm just going to grab 2x6 brick wall. I'm going to bring my mouse into the drawing area, and I'm just going to bring my cursor down into the left-hand corner of the drawing area, and I'm just going to left-click once. Once I left-click once and I start to move my mouse around, we can see that a line is starting to be drawn. And depending on the direction that I move, I can also see in the commander the distance and the direction. So 0 is always going to be in the, 0 is always going to be to the right, going up 90, going to the left is going to be 180, and going down is going to be 270. As you can also see, the distance is highlighted in blue. This just lets you know that that is the currently editable box. So you can type in whatever value you want in there. So I'm going to move my mouse to the right, and I'm going to type in 25 feet. Now you have to make sure you put the foot sign in. We do assume inches if you do not have the foot sign in there. So if you just typed in 25, you would get a wall that is going to be 2 foot 1 inches in length. So again, make sure you have the foot sign. type in 25 feet and press enter. And that first wall is now going to be added in. Again, I'm not holding my left mouse button down. I don't even have my hand on the mouse at this point. I'm just moving my mouse in the direction I want it to go. And then I'm just going to type in a distance. So again, we want to move the wall upwards. So that's going to be in the 90-degree direction. I'm going to type in 10 feet, again, making sure to put the foot sign in, and I press enter. I'm going to move my mouse to the right again. So again, in the 0 direction, 5 feet, enter. Move my mouse upwards, type in 20 feet, enter. Move my mouse all the way to the left. And in here, I can do a couple of different things. So I can type in the exact value, which would be 30 feet, and I can press enter. But if I have a tool enabled down in the lower commander called Snap Track, I can reference another point in my drawing. So if I want to make sure that it is exactly square and exactly straight, I can use Snap Track. I can bring my mouse down to this first point that we drew, and I'm going to see that I get a circle with an X. That is letting me know that I'm snapping to the end point of that first point that we moved in, or that we drew in. As soon as I start to move my mouse upwards, it's going to show me a line, and that is the snap track line. So that is the reference line from that point that we were referencing. And as you can see, the distance is set to 30 feet. All I have to do is press enter. And that wall is now added in at the correct length based off of the reference point that we were using. Now, this is a self-enclosing polyline, so we do not need to reselect the first point. All we have to do from here is select right-click. Right-click will activate the context menu. Now, in this context menu, we have 3 different controls. We have a finish, a cancel, and a step back. So if at any point during the creation of your walls that you made a mistake in selecting a point or typing in a distance wrong and it's not looking correct, you don't need to cancel the command completely. You can simply right-click, and then you can select Step Back. And this will allow you to step back all the way to the very first point that you added in. If you're happy with everything and it looks good, you can simply select Finish. This will bring up the Walls by Baseline dialog box. And in here, we can see that we have 3 different options for defining the boundary's edge. Was that to the outer face of the veneer? Were those lines to the outer face of the wall core or stud? Or were they referencing the inner face of the wall core or stud? Do we want to offset from that line any distance towards the inside or outside? In our cases, we're going to say no to that. We don't want to do an offset. But if you ever wanted to, let's say you had a plan that only showed the brick veneer, but you wanted it to go to the frame, you could actually offset it in whatever the thickness of the frame or whatever the thickness of the brick is. You could use that as an offset distance towards the inside. Alternatively, if you only have a plan that shows the framing, but you want to show the dimensions to the veneer, then you could offset it to the outside, whatever the thickness of the veneer is. So again, you can control where you want your offsets to be based by typing in a distance and then towards the inside or outside. Again, we're going to keep ours at 0, and we're going to use the outer face of the veneer. We want that measurement to be from face of brick to face of brick. So we're going to say, okay. And that's going to automatically create all of our walls for us. So we're now going to be able to see our walls in our drawing area. I'm just going to zoom out really quick here. So I'm using the flywheel on my mouse to zoom out. And this big green square that we see here is the actual terrain. So it's at this point where I start to take a look at the overall scale of my project, and I take a look at how it's situated in my terrain. And I'm going to say this is sitting too far to the left for my liking. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight everything. It's creating a crossing window. So I'm left clicking and holding my left mouse button down, creating that crossing window, and it's going to highlight everything. I'm then just going to right click and I can select move. And I can now move that wall or those group of walls And I want to move this so it sits more in the middle of my design, and that looks a little bit off. There we go. So now I have my entire plan in the middle of the green square, which is representing my actual terrain. I'm just going to zoom in again, and we're now going to start to work on drawing walls using the point and click method. So if you prefer a more free-form design approach, or you want to draw your interior walls, you're going to use the Walls tool. Once you've selected this tool, all you have to do is point and click with your mouse to define the start and the end points of each wall. Again, on-screen dimensions will display the lengths of the walls as you draw them, and you still have the option of using the commander to specify an exact length and angle if necessary. Walls drawn with this tool are drawn on center. So we're going to go back up. We're again going to select, if you like to use the menu, you're going to select under Insert. You're going to select Walls. You're going to use the Walls button. Or if you like to use the actual buttons, you're going to go to the Building tab. And then using the drop-down, just select Walls. In the catalog panel on the right-hand side, we are just going to grab a 2x6 interior framed wall. So I'm just going to go into interior frame partitions, wood framed, and I'm just going to grab a 2x6 interior wall. In the drawing area, we are going to position our mouse over this interior corner right here. And as soon as I do that, I'm going to get a circle with an X, which is again just using this as a snap point. And this is where I want my interior wall to snap to. So I'm just going to left click once to snap to that point. Again, I'm not holding my mouse button down. I actually have my hand off of my cursor right now, and I can see that that wall is attached to that corner. As soon as I move my mouse up or down, up or to the left, it's going to show me the wall being stretched from that insertion point. Now, all I'm going to do is stretch all the way over to the left. And as soon as I get to the center of the wall, I'm going to get a circle with an X. And again, that's letting me know that I'm snapping to the center of the core of the wall. Now, depending on the wall, you want to make sure that you're not snapping to an incorrect point. So if the center point was a little bit closer, then it would find the center point and my wall would be on an angle. So I want to make sure that I am just going across my screen. And since I have ortho on it, it's going to automatically going to keep it straight for me. And then I'm just going to make sure I'm snapping to the center of the wall. I then just left click once to insert that wall. I'll know if I have the walls inserted correctly because when I zoom in on a corner, it's going to show a nice clean intersection. There's no extra lines showing up in either of my intersections. So I know I have a nice clean intersection created. So now that we've added in our first interior wall, we're now going to use the Enter Insertion Offset option. So we're going to right click and we're going to select Enter Insertion Offset. In the Enter Insertion Offset dialog, we are going to go up and we're going to type in a distance of 10 feet. Again, making sure to put the foot sign in, and we're just going to simply say, okay. We're going to bring our mouse into our drawing area. And if you look at where my cursor is, no matter where I place my cursor, I'm going to see a 10-foot dimension. So right now it's trying to place a wall 10 feet from this exterior corner along the top horizontal wall. If I bring my mouse down towards this wall, it's now offsetting from this corner down 10 feet along this right vertical wall. I want this to be 10 feet from this interior corner. So I'm going to move my mouse down to this interior side, and I'm just going to move my mouse in just a little bit, and I can now see that 10-foot dimension. If you notice where my cursor is, I am nowhere near the end of that 10-foot dimension. And when I left click, it automatically snaps to that 10-foot mark. And now I can bring my mouse all the way up, again, making sure I snap to the center of the exterior wall. And I just simply left click to place that wall in. We're now going to right click and select Finish. And that adds in our first two walls using the Walls tool, as well as using the Enter by Insertion Offset. Now we're going to be looking at creating walls by copying. Now you can copy walls using the, you can copy existing walls by using the duplicate command. So what we're going to do is we're going to select a wall that we want to copy, and I want to use this wall as my copy, and I just left click on it once. That's going to show me the wall. It's going to be highlighted in green. I'm then just going to right click, and I'm going to select duplicate. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can duplicate a wall. You can use, and I like to use the center point when I do this, I can simply left click once on that blue grip, and I can now move my mouse up or down, and it's going to be attached to my cursor. I don't have my mouse or my hand on the mouse anymore. I've left clicked on that center point, and it's now attached to the cursor itself. And the distance in the commander, I can type in whatever distance I want. So I can say I want this to be 8 feet, and it's going to move that wall up that 8-foot distance. Now again, that's going to be 8 feet from the center of the wall to the center of the wall. Now I can also, if I delete that wall out, select, right click, duplicate, and I can left click and hold that center grip. So right now my hand is on the mouse. I am holding the wall, or sorry, the left mouse button down so that I can move the wall. And then as soon as I get it close to 8 feet, I'm just gonna let go of the mouse button, and that will duplicate the wall. Either option will work. It's gonna be whatever works best for you. If you like to have a little bit more precise measurements, you can do the duplicate by selecting the midpoint with a single left click, and then you can type in your distance. Or you can, again, just select something, duplicate, hold, and release to, again, just quickly duplicate the wall. Once the wall has been positioned, I want you to take notice of the dimensions that are being displayed. So here we can see that the dimensions that are showing up are showing a 10-foot width, as well as a 10-foot 1 5/8 and a 7-foot 6 7/8. These are what we call dynamic dimensions. And these dynamic dimensions can be edited to achieve the exact distance that you want that wall to sit. The key to this command is you want to make sure that the wall that you have selected, or the object you have selected, is the element that you want to move. So as an example, I want to move this wall so that it is set to be 9 feet. So I'm going to use this dimension right here, and it's going to bring up the Edit Dimension dialog. I want this wall to move up to give me that 9-foot dimension. So I'm going to type in 9 feet, and I'm going to press OK. And that will move this wall up to be that 9 feet. And we can now see that is exactly 9 feet away from our existing wall. If I do Edit Undo, I just want to show you the side effects of not selecting the correct wall, because if I select this wall, I'm going to get the same dimension, but this is the wall that's going to move. So if I again want this to be 9 feet, when I select it and I say 9 feet, it's going to move the wrong wall. So yes, I'll still get the correct dimension, but it's moving it in the wrong direction. So again, just make sure you have the wall selected that you want to move to accommodate that change. Select the dimension that you want and type in the distance and say OK. Also, following along with that same concept, if I select a wall like this and I look at this dimension here, I can see that it's set to 10 feet. I can stretch this wall, and if I click on it, I'm going to get a Edit Dimensions dialog, but I'm going to get a couple of little arrows here. And what that is telling me is, all right, so you want this wall to be stretched along its axis, but what is the distance that you want, and which point do you want to edit? Do I want to edit, in this case, the left side, which is the red dot, or do I want to edit the green dot on the right side? I want that to be the green dot that's going to be edited. And let's just make that 12 feet. And when I say OK, it's now going to move this wall for me. So it's stretching all of this for me over that 2 feet. This will only show up if you're stretching along the axis of the wall or the element itself. So again, if I select this dimension, you're not going to see the arrows because we're moving it vertically here. But if I select a dimension that runs parallel with the element, it's going to show me those marks, and I can simply say I want to move it, and I want it to come in that. It's going to move the edge of that wall for us, and it's going to, you can choose the arrow that you want to edit. So again, here we want to move this point. I want it to be back to 10 feet. And when I say OK, it's going to move this wall back to be that 10-foot distance. If I chose this arrow and I did the 12 feet, just to highlight what would happen, it's going to move the exterior wall. And again, we don't want that to happen. So we're going to make sure we change that back to be 10 feet. And we can say OK. So just a quick tip here for adding in a new story. To add a new story to your model, you can simply switch to a different building location and you can start to draw walls on that location. However, there are a couple of tools that you can take advantage of that make this task even easier. You can use the duplicate to locations, or you can use the floor and foundation builder wizard to quickly create a new story in your design. You can use the duplicate to locations tool on a wall's right-click menu to copy the walls from one location to another. Copying your perimeter walls can create a new story in your model very quickly. This will create walls that are of the exact same type and in the exact same position on your new location. So if I wanted to make sure that I was creating a two-story brick house that follows the exact same shape, I would select all similar, right-click, duplicate to location, and I would say I want this to be duplicated to the second floor, and I can say OK. And it will ask you, do you want to delete the original? And I'm going to say no, I don't want to delete the original walls out. I just want to copy them up. So now when I look at this in a 3D view, I'm going to see the exact same walls on the second floor location. If I do an edit undo, you can see it's removed them. You can also use the floor and foundation builder wizard to create another level. The wizard will create the perimeter walls for a new level by tracing the perimeter walls that you have drawn on a different location. The advantage of using the floor and foundation builder wizard is you get to choose the type of walls that you want to use for that new location. So if I was creating a second floor or even a foundation plan, I would use the perimeter of my ground floor, and then I would be able to choose. And if I select floor and foundation builder wizard and I select next, I can say I want to create a new floor level, and I can choose the location. So in this case, I want to create a second floor, and I would then be able to say next, and then I can choose the type of floor cavity I want to have in this design. Is it a cavity? Is it stacked? Is it a suspended floor? And then you can choose your walls and your floors for that location, and it will then create the walls on this location based off of the wall type that you use. So if I wanted these to be, instead of brick walls, I wanted it to be a siding wall. And I'm just going to grab a cement board siding and say OK. And then I'm just going to grab a structural floor. And we're just going to do a 2x10 with no sill plate. And we'll say cavity. And we're going to say next. What it's going to do is it's going to add in that wall for us. And we can start to see how that's taking shape. And I'm just going to say next, and then finish. And what this will do in that 3D view is it's going to create those walls on that new location. and then I can select all similar, right-click properties. And these walls just need to have the lower exterior face set to be a negative, we'll do 10.5 inches, and we'll say okay. Sorry, my mistake, not negative. We're already dropping it, so it just needs to be 10.5 inches. And that will create the exact same perimeter shape, but the veneer is going to be different on the second floor. And we're just going to do edit, undo, and edit, undo on that. Oh, edit, redo. And again, those are the different ways that you can create a new location. Again, depending on the types of walls that you want on your second or on your foundation plans. Next, we're going to be looking at editing walls. So once you have inserted a wall, you can edit it in many ways. You can change its length as well as its various properties associated with its size, type, and appearance. So let's replace a wall in our design. So we're going to select the front horizontal wall in our design. And we're going to right click and we're going to select replace. When you select replace, it's going to bring up the replace dialog. And in here, you can choose a totally different type of wall. So let's say we want this to be a 2x6 stone wall. So I'm going to say, okay. The size of the wall didn't change, but the appearance of that wall did. So if I go back into a 3D view, I'm now seeing that wall as a stone wall instead of a brick wall. This is important because it's going to have the correct properties assigned to it. So it's going to have the correct building materials, it's going to have the correct materials. All of that will be visible because I've replaced the wall itself. So if I went into the properties of this wall, we can see that it's showing me the correct core size, the exterior surface size. I can also adjust and take a look at the quantity tab. And this is where it's now using the stone coverage instead of the brick coverage. Now, while we're in this properties dialog, and just so you can see again how I got to there, you can select an element and then right click and you can bring up its properties. Now, walls have numerous properties that defines their shape, size, construction materials, height, trim, appearance, and its quantity information. And each wall in your drawing can have its own unique set of properties. Again, I just want to point out in this dialog that since we've added this wall into a document or into a drawing, it is showing up with the word document in brackets. If I cancel out of here and I close the camera properties down, if I select a wall in the catalog as an example, and I double click on that wall, I'm going to get the exact same dialog, but in brackets, I'm going to see the word catalog. This is a permanent change, so this will affect the catalog going forward. So unless you want this to be a permanent change, you would never want to see the word catalog when editing. In the drawing file, when you double click, or if you select it, right click properties, you'll see walls and then document. This is a change only in the drawing file you're working with. So in this properties dialog, we can see we have a basic tab. Now on this basic tab, you can edit the type of wall construction as well as the dimension of each of the components in that wall system. So again, adjusting the width of the veneer, the airspace, how far down do you want that lower exterior face to go? All of that can be edited from here. You can also control the left and the right interior surface as well. You can also see that we have the type option. Now the type option controls the type of wall. Is it just a general wall? Is it a framed wall? Is it a poured concrete or masonry wall? Is it a girt or is it a log wall? You can again choose the type of wall that is going to be needed for this particular application. And in this case, it's a framed wall. And since framed wall is selected, I have a framing member that I can define, and it's a 2x6. because again, we're using a 2x6 construction. On the top and bottom tab, this is where we can control the way that the walls are going to be reflected in our design. So right now it is set to auto extend. So if I add in a roof, the walls are going to automatically extend up to the roof. I can say I want all of my walls on this location to always be level. And when I select level, it's going to use whatever my building locations defined. So again, at the very beginning, we talked about our building locations. This is where that value comes in and is referencing that 8'1" 1/8. I can also slope or step my walls as well. Now, the key to this is taking note of the green and the red dots. So if I wanted to slope this wall as an example, I can see that I have a green and a red dot. The green dot represents the start point, and the red dot represents the stop point. So if I wanted it to be an 8'1" 1/8" down to a 4-foot wall at the red dot, when I say okay to that, it's going to slope that wall from the green to the red, and that's going to be my 4-foot height. If I go back in the properties, top and bottom, I would just say level, and it's going to automatically make it level again. Same with the step option. You can control, again, your start and your end points. You can also control what you want each point to be. So you can, again, adjust the maximum step for these steps in your design. So it's going to go back to level, and we're going to say okay to that. I'm just going to go back into the properties. And then we have the trim tab. Now on the trim tab, here is where you can apply different types of trim to either side of the wall, such as your baseboards, your crown molding, your chair rails, your door and window sills, and trim around your openings. You do not need to draw the trim at all. It is automatically applied to the wall once defined here. To apply trim, you can simply select the type you want to define in the trim column. Again, you can select the crown, the chair rail, the baseboard, the opening, and you have the sill. But you're also going to see an application side. And you can see that there is a left, a right, and an exterior side. Now, I'm just going to go into a 2D plan view here for a second, real quick, and we're going to select this wall. So again, we're going to be referencing the green and the red grips. So again, if I look at this in properties, and I just bring this over to the side here, and I go to trim, when I'm talking about the left and the right interior surface, we need to define what the left and the right is when a wall is drawn. So in Envisioneer, the start point is always the green dot, and the end point is always the red dot. The best way to describe this is picturing yourself standing at this green dot, looking towards the red dot. So I'm standing here, looking in this direction. This would be the left-hand side of my wall, and this would be the right-hand side of my wall. Now, since this is an exterior wall, this is the exterior side, and this would be the left interior surface. If I was selecting this wall up here, I would have a green dot here and a red dot here. So the wall into this area would be the left side, and the wall on this side would be the right side. So if I wanted trim over here, because this is like a dining room or what have it, and this is going to be a bathroom, so I don't want wood trim in this bathroom, I would be able to define that I don't want trim on the right-hand side of this wall. So again, you can select the wall, look at the green towards the red, and determine what the left and the right side is. And then in the properties, under your trim, you would apply or remove the trim applicable to that appropriate side. So here we can see left interior surface. I can apply a crown molding to the left-hand side of this wall. And you can go through each of these, and you can, again, add in a new option by hitting the select and then selecting the correct folder. So let's just grab a crown molding, like we'll do this one here, and we'll say okay. And what you're going to see is the crown molding showing up on top of that wall. You can do the same for a chair rail. You can do the same for baseboards, your openings. You have custom option, which is used for more like wainscot paneling. I also use this a lot for backsplashes in my kitchens. You can also do a window head, a door head, again, creating different design styles for your trim. And then when you say okay to that wall, if we just go into a 3D quick view real quick here and we pull the camera in, we will now see that trim along the top of our wall. And I'm just going to go into a rendered outline view so you can see that. And we can now see that trim on top of our wall. I'm going to go back into 2D and select this wall once again. And in the properties, we're going to select the appearance tab. Now, the appearance tab is where you can determine how the wall will look in both 2D and 3D. Each component of the wall is going to be listed on the left, and you can select and edit each one individually. The material settings determine how the wall will look in a rendered display mode, and you also have the ability to adjust how you want the appearance of the lines to be in your plans. Now, under the line work tab, this is where you're going to control, again, the layers, as well as the patterns for the views. So for my exterior surface, I'm going to be able to control the pattern, which is a stone wall. So it's going to have the cultured stone look. It's going to be on the walls layer. And then I have my 2D core, which is that red or burgundy layer. Exterior surface is blue. My left and my right interior is green. And then the airspace, which you're not going to see, is that blue as well. So when I take a look at the walls, when I'm in a plan view, I can see green, burgundy, and blue. And that's where those values come from. Next, we're going to select the quantity tab. So I'm going to go back into the properties. And again, under the quantity tab, here's where you can enter information associated with the ordering and the pricing of the element. The settings on this page are used when generating a project estimate. So again, you can control the actual information over on the left-hand side. So if it's going to be quantified, do you want it to be using the elements from the assemblies to be included in your quantities? And do you want to replace it with the assemblies? So in this case, we wouldn't go out and buy a 2x6 wall. We would create this wall using these assemblies. So we have this replace with assemblies option, which says, don't include the 2x6 wall in my reports, just use the assemblies in the reports. And then these are the assemblies that are used to create this wall. So here we can see stone construction, again, showing that same common stone with the mortar sand, and the wall ties. We also have our OSB sheathing with house wrap being calculated, our drywall, our bat insulation, our framing nails, and our paint and our primer. All of this put together creates that stone wall. And I'm just going to say okay to all of that. So just a quick note again, when you edit the properties of a wall that you have inserted in your drawing, the wall's definition does not change in the catalog, because again, when we went into the properties, it was a part of the document. If this is going to be a wall that I want to use in the future, I can create a custom wall. So I'm going to call this 2x6 stone wall, and I'm just going to say with crown molding. And I'm going to say, okay. What I will then do is I can now go down and I can add this to my catalog. So I can go up to File, Catalogs, and I can say Save Element to Catalog. And then I can click on that wall. And it's going to ask, do you want to save the 2x6 stone wall with crown molding to the catalog? Yes, I do. Would you like to save any other custom elements? In this case, no, I do not need to. And what that will do is it's going to save the catalog, and then forever in that catalog, you're going to have a new 2x6 stone wall with crown molding. So you can again use this wall in any new future projects that you're going to create. So that covers everything that I wanted to talk about in today's class. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here for a moment to see if anybody has any questions. I'm also going to go over a quick review of what we've covered. So there are various ways to create walls in Envisioneer. The method you choose will depend on your design requirements and your personal design style. Not only do you have great versatility when drawing walls, but you can also customize the properties of the walls that suit your needs. You can use the Walls by Baseline tool to create an exterior wall layout with precise dimensions. You can also use the Walls tool to freeform your designs or for drawing your interior walls. Use the insertion offset option before selecting a wall start point to start the wall a specific distance away from another wall. You can create new walls quickly by copying any existing walls. To add a level to your model, you can simply draw walls on another building location. You can use the Duplicate to Locations tool to copy walls from the ground floor to that location, or you can use the Floor and Foundation Builder Wizard. Each wall has various properties that determine its size, its type, its composition, and its appearance, and these can all be customized in the properties of the wall. You can also use the Replace tool to replace a wall in your drawing with another type of wall from within the catalog. And then for anything that you've customized that you will probably use again in the future, you can use the Save Element to Catalog tool to have that be a permanent fixture within your custom catalog. So again, that covers everything that I wanted to talk about in today's class. I will be sending out an email very shortly that's going to have a document in it that, again, goes over everything that we've talked about today. So if you do want to try this out on your own and you are using that document, if you happen to have any questions while doing that, please don't hesitate. Contact our support department. We'll be happy to help you out. I want to thank everybody for attending today, and I do look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. Thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.